everyone, and welcome to blog number 2 for Harry Potter, aka the Sorcerer's Star. This is a homebred of ours, and he is coming along quite nicely. We've recently made the move back from Aiken, South Carolina to our home base in Pennsylvania, and so he got some time off in April, both because he came down with a skin condition, which he needed some time to heal from, and we were just busy trying to get the farm in Aiken packed up and get everybody moved to Pennsylvania. So I'm a firm believer in letting the young horses do a little bit of work here and there and then come back into work as time allows. Since they are only 4 years old, they have their whole careers in front of them. But at the same time, I also think a little bit of discipline and consistent work makes them a lot more solid citizens in the barn. So you can see with him that I am starting to do a little bit of baby leg yielding, both off of my inside leg and off of my outside leg, to try to just get him to get soft in the contact, and also doing some serpentines and some changes of directions. With the young horses, I find that it's so important to make sure that they stay in front of your leg and stay connected to the bridle while still working on their frame and their own self-carriage. Some horses are a lot more challenging than others. Luckily, Potter has been very, very easy in the bridle. It's especially important with the horse of his size. He's almost 17 hands. Actually, I think he is 17 hands now. That he has a nice way of going and good self-carriage. He's also very soft in the bridle. So we will continue to do things like leg yields, very small leg yields off of the outside leg as you see here, and then pushing him back off the inside leg so that he gets used to sort of being shaped by a rider's leg. I'm very fortunate that I have working students who help me with the young horses because it helps them learn, and it also helps the young horses because it gives them different types of riders on them. It allows them to be a little more patient. And so if you've got a nice young horse who has a good temperament, you can teach the working students about how to bring along young horses. So you can see I'm doing more leg yielding here off the outside leg, and I do it off the rail to start with to give them a good sense of where they are. And then you can see I come down the center line or close to the center line, given where the jumps are, and ask him to do it in an open area so that he does actually move off the leg and not just sort of fake it, as they sometimes can when they are moving off the rail. So then I just went back to doing some walk trot transitions because I was going to prepare to do some trot canter transitions. And again, I like with my young horses to keep it very simple. And so a lot of times I will ask for transitions on the same place on the circle. I find that horses are creatures of habit. And so if you can teach them in the same place that something happens in that place on the circle, they get better at reading the cues. And so you don't have to use your cues and your aids as strongly. And so you can see that there's some walk trot going there. And then I start asking for the canter. And you can say he just hopped up there behind a little bit. I'm not going to make a big deal of that. And so I actually come back and ask him for another canter transition there. If a horse actually gets to the point where he's overreacting to the leg time and time again, I'll try to do something slightly different, maybe reposition the leg a little bit until he is less reactive. But in Potter's case, I think it was just his first canter depart, and he just got a little bit of a goose. And so he sort of picked up and gave a little bit of a prop. The other thing that we worked on and that we've been starting to work on is the halt. And it sounds like not a big deal, but teaching young horses to halt takes a little bit of practice because They want to get strong in the bridle. When you go to square them up, they don't quite understand what squaring up means because they want to go forward. And so you've got to work on sort of what that all means. And so I'll do 10, 15 halts, working on trying to get them straight and square and soft. And you have to balance all of those things, because if you get a horse that gets anxious at the halt because you're fiddling with trying to square them up and they don't understand squaring up, then you're going to ruin it for a little while. And so what I try to do is try to just be very subtle. And if they will move that leg that I'm asking them to move, then I'll let them off. Or if they're particularly straight, but not square, I might let them off, because there is the straightness, the quietness, the squareness, and the lack of fussiness. And so like there you can see he got fussy, but he squared up, and I was really, really happy with that. And so I just let him off on that. And then we came back to it again. And sometimes as well, I'll walk to the halt, because I find that sometimes that helps balance the horses a little bit. There you can see I ask him to move up. He gets a little bit fussy, but he squares up behind, but then he messes up in front. But again, he moved the leg I was looking for him to move. And so when you're working with your young horses, be patient with them, with everything, but especially as you're teaching them new things, because it's kind of an odd thing that all of a sudden we're closing our leg to a closed hand. And so there you can see he's straight and he's square. It gives a little bit of fussiness with the head. And I just reassure him that everything is good and he's a good boy. And so we let him off there. So a couple days later, we worked on jumping. And we've done a little bit of this and a little bit of that with him. And today I was working with placement poles, and so we tried our first set of placement poles. They're set 3 meters or 9 feet from the fences, and he's a big, long horse, as we've talked about before. And so a lot of times with a horse like him, I might have to pull out the rails so that he has a little bit more room. We've done enough poles with him over time that he's sort of getting the idea. You can see on the vertical, he doesn't quite get his shoulder up the first time and rotate his shoulder. But again, he was good with the poles. So rather than making the poles longer and making the distance longer, I'd rather see if he can get a better distance in there and learn to use his body better. And so here, I just sort of soften and he gets better there and comes around. And then we'll throw in an oxer at a low height again, just working away, and then maybe put a couple of fences together. It's about repeating them and having the horses be disciplined to do the same thing over and over again and having the same results. The other thing, last time I think we worked a little bit on flying changes, and you can see here he gets the right to left change very well, which was super. Again, with the young horses, sometimes they forget things or they get confused, and it's not a time to get on top of them, but more just to try to explain to them that's not what they wanted to happen. Because you can see here, this time he switches halfway, and I ask a couple of times, and he's like, I have no idea. And so I just trot and then come back. And then we just finish up over a nice oxer, and he's been such a good boy. I let him off with that. And I look forward to continuing my work with him. He is such a good boy, and we'll see where he is in a couple of months.